Hello, Tyler. Welcome to Potterwatch.
Oh, thanks, Holly. I'm very excited to be here.
Can you tell the students who you are?
Yeah, my name is Tyler Doggett. I am a professor of philosophy here at UVM, and I'm also a huge Harry Potter fan.
And can you tell us what is your question for us today, Tyler?
My question is Dumbledore a utilitarian?
And what is your proposed answer? And can you also first tell us what is utilitarian?
Absolutely. Utilitarianism is a moral theory that says what you should do in any situation is what produces the best results. And according to utilitarianism, the best results are the results that produce the most well-being. So, to use a simple example, Holly, if you had exactly two choices, one is to give me my favorite food, and the other is to give me my least favorite food, and no one else is going to be affected. A utilitarian says, you, Holly, are morally required to give me my favorite food. Now, that's an easy example. Everyone thinks in that situation, you should give me my favorite food. But here's a tougher situation. So like this is a famous philosophical example, which you see dramatized in the TV show The Good Place. Imagine there's a train coming down the tracks, Holly, and oh no, it's going to kill 5 people. But you are the conductor, Holly, and you can switch the train to a different track where it's going to kill 1 person. Those are your two choices. You only have 2 choices. Holly, what should you do?
I'm gonna kill that 1 person.
Switch to kill the 1, right? And utilitarians say that's right, and that's because you're producing the best results, which are the happiest results. So my question is Dumbledore a utilitarian? And the reason it seems like Dumbledore is a utilitarian comes from his relationship with Grindelwald. And in his relationship with Grindelwald, they often talk about how they're doing things for the greater good. There's some reason to think when he was a kid, Dumbledore was a utilitarian, but I'm going to argue actually he's not a utilitarian. And in fact, I don't think he ever was a utilitarian. This is controversial. If you go to the Pottermore wiki, you do see that this is not the interpretation on that wiki. I encourage your students to go and correct the misinterpretation there. All right, so here's the thing. The reason it seems like Dumbledore was a utilitarian when he was younger and friends with Grindelwald is because they thought it was morally okay to do certain things to Muggles for the Muggles' own good. In fact, I think the doorway to Nuremberg says for the greater good. I think Grindelwald probably was a utilitarian. Grindelwald thought whatever you should do is what produces the best results, where that's the most happiness. I think what Dumbledore was getting at was actually a slightly different thing, which was this. Wizards, in virtue of their enormous power, have an obligation to take care of people. The reason they should do certain things for people is because it was for the people's own good. This is actually a way that people often think about our relationships with animals. Holly, I can't remember. Do you have pets?
Not at the moment.
No pets. But is it okay to talk about your personal life a little bit? Like, for example,
Sure.
Your family? Yes. Okay,
Sure.
great. So you do have children.
Yes.
And when you were deciding whether to take your oldest child to the doctor, let's say it's going to be slightly unpleasant. It's a checkup which involves a shot. Do you think it's okay to force that oldest child to do that slightly unpleasant thing and get the shot? Or let's say like the shot is actually very valuable for protecting your oldest child.
Oh yeah, he's getting vaccines.
Okay. Students, I want you to notice that Professor Painter just like correctly read between the lines of that question. Yeah, right. Expert reader. Okay. One way to think about this is because you and your partner have a special duty towards your children. to take care of them until they're old enough to take care of themselves. I think the way Dumbledore thinks about us as Muggles is we're never going to be able to take care of ourselves entirely. Wizards are always going to have to take care of us. Just like with my cats, Midnight and Zeke, or my rabbit, Kenya the rabbit. I will always have to do something to take care of them. I do not think this makes me a utilitarian. I think this makes me someone whose job it is to look out for the best interests of other people and other sentient creatures, like in particular Midnight and Zeke and Kenya the rabbit. A way you can see the difference between this and utilitarianism is to think about this sort of situation. Was Voldemort a utilitarian? No, definitely not. Voldemort is just interested in benefiting a certain group of people, namely the bad wizards, the dark wizards. If he were a utilitarian, he would probably be approaching things much differently. Like, of course, he would want the bad wizards to benefit because they're part of the population of wizards and muggles. But it's a bad way to maximize well-being, to treat good wizards really badly and to treat muggles really badly, which is what Voldemort does. So a purely utilitarian philosophy would lead to much different behaviors than Voldemort engages in. I think Dumbledore actually is like Voldemort in rejecting utilitarianism, but he's unlike Voldemort in that Voldemort privileges a certain group of sentient creatures above all the other ones, namely the dark wizards. Dumbledore doesn't. Dumbledore, like utilitarians, I think, sees all the sentient creatures as being basically equal in moral importance. But he thinks people who are in greater positions of power, like wizards, are required to take care of people who have more trouble taking care of themselves, namely the muggles. If he were a pure utilitarian, then there might be situations in which he doesn't think you should take care of small groups of sentient creatures when that's going to benefit large groups of creatures. Like, go back to our case, Holly, of 5 versus 1. If you're a pure utilitarian, you think you should always favor 5 over 1 because that produces more happiness. Maybe that was Grindelwald's view, but there's no reason to think that was Dumbledore's view. On Dumbledore's view, you have to take care of people even if it turns out that the wizards would rather not. Dumbledore doesn't think, oh, as long as there are enough dark wizards, then it's fine to do whatever we want with muggles. That would be Voldemort's view. Maybe that would be Grindelwald's view, but that is not Dumbledore's view. And because of that, I think Dumbledore is actually not a utilitarian, and in fact, never was a utilitarian. What do you think?
Oh, I have some questions. So Dumbledore has a duty of care to his students who are in a similar position of, I mean, they are literally children.
Yes.
So do you think that he is fulfilling that duty of care?
Okay, so the really hard cases involve Dumbledore's treatment of Harry and Hermione, maybe Ron to a lesser extent. The treatment of Tom Riddle is also a really good case. I've thought about, you had brought up the Harry issue with me before. The way Dumbledore treats Harry is like morally complicated. Until just now, I'd never thought of the Riddle thing. Actually, another good way, I think, Holly, to see that Dumbledore is not a utilitarian is the way Dumbledore treats Riddle. If Dumbledore were a utilitarian, Dumbledore, knowing the risk that Tom Riddle posed to the world in general, probably should have just killed off Tom Riddle very early on.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a pure utility point of view, killing off Voldemort very early on is the thing to do. I mean, students actually often ask this about utilitarianism. Like, what does utilitarianism imply about killing like baby Hitler or baby Stalin? And it implies absolutely those babies should have been killed. I mean, of course, we had no idea what they were going to become. But Tom Riddle gave Dumbledore plenty of clues And I think if you're a pure utilitarian, he should have killed them off. But I think, Holly, because he thought of himself as Riddle's teacher and someone who owed Riddle this duty of care, it wouldn't have been okay for him just to kill him off, any more than if you have a child and you're like, this one, I don't know. There's something deeply defective about you as a parent, right?
I would think so.
If you abandon that child or tried to kill that child off. All right, so that's the Riddle case. The Harry case, so just like to address your students directly. So one thing Professor Painter said to me that I thought was really profound is Dumbledore seems to treat Harry as a tool to produce the good result of defeating Voldemort. A standard objection to utilitarianism is utilitarianism allows us to treat other people as tools. So for example, to go back to our train case, you have the 5 versus the 1. Holly, imagine there's no train here. It's just your medical Dr. Painter. And hey, amazing, here comes one patient with the sniffles. And just hot on their heels, Dr. Painter, there are these 5 others. And oh no, these 5 people are dying of organ failures. But this is not a pure nightmare, Holly, because this one needs 1 kidney, this one needs the other one, this one needs 1 lung, this one needs the other, and this one needs a liver. And oh, incredible, this person is a perfect match for all 5. Holly, as a doctor, is it morally okay for you to kill 1 to save 5 people?
No.
No. Plausible explanation for why it's not is because you're using this 1 person as a tool to save these 5s. In the train case, that actually is not true. In the train case, the way we set it up, killing the 1 person doesn't save the lives of the 5. What saves the lives of the 5 is just switching the track. If the 1 person gets off the track, Holly, you're not going to chase that person down and be like, get back on the track. Whereas if you're a doctor who's trying to kill this 1 and the 1 gets away, you're going to go hunt that person down. So a standard objection to utilitarianism is that it allows us to treat people as tools to produce happiness. There is, I think, like some reason to think that that Dumbledore does use Harry as a tool to produce happiness. And like a good way you can see that he uses Harry as a tool is like a mark of using people as tools is very often that we aren't honest with them. Kant, the famous anti-utilitarian philosopher, thought that like, the thing that is wrong with deception is that we treat human beings as tools when we deceive them. Dumbledore very often keeps Harry in the dark about what's going on in a way that might strike you as entirely disrespectful, and that shows you that like Dumbledore is just trying to like pull some strings to get Harry to do certain things in order to produce these good results. I do think like Dumbledore is morally suspect in just that way, and as a teacher, I do think it is seriously morally screwed up for you and for me to treat our students in that way. And I do think like that sort of treatment is very often licensed by utilitarianism, and I do think that is one of the stronger pieces of evidence that Dumbledore is a utilitarian. The way he treats Hermione, I think, is more respectful, less utilitarian. Same with Ron.
Mm-hmm. What about Snape?
Whoa. The way Snape treats Harry?
Oh, I was actually going to say the way that Dumbledore treats Snape.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good, great. Okay. An important difference in moral philosophy is between treating someone as a tool and treating them merely as a tool. And until now, I've actually not been making that distinction, but now I'm going to make that distinction. Very clearly, Dumbledore is getting something out of Snape. Snape is crucial to Dumbledore's plans. It doesn't follow from that Dumbledore is treating Snape in a morally objectionable way. So, for example, Holly, you are getting something out of me right now, right?
Yes.
You got me, your boy, your friend, to like give you 15 minutes of content for Potterwatch. Students, is Holly, my boy, treating me as a tool? I think like Holly is not treating me in an objectionable way. So I think the way Kant would put it is, you aren't treating me merely as a tool. And that's because you were totally upfront with me about what was going to happen. Like it wasn't like I thought we were just having a hangout session and all of a sudden you're like using me for your students. I knew what was going on. Like you've been respectful throughout. You've been entirely upfront with me about the whole thing. So I think there's some reason to think, and actually I might be forgetting certain details about the way Dumbledore treats Snape, but Snape isn't in the dark about what's going on, right? And Snape, for the most part, is like freely, informedly consenting to what's happening to him in a way that I think Harry probably is not.
That's true. The deception is there.
That's an important difference, which raises this important issue about the connection between treating someone merely as a tool and securing their consent. There's also this interesting question about age of consent. Like when Harry's very young, you might think there's just no possibility of him giving like free and informed consent, free and informed and rational consent, because 11-year-olds can't really do that. Yeah, that's a good issue. That would be another long video, I think, to talk about that one.
Well, you've consented to 15 minutes, and we've reached that. So,
okay,
I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
All right, thanks, people.
All right. Thank you, Tyler.
See you, Holly. Bye.